So you want to know how to tell a story, and that's fine. Hey, look, I'm always looking for ways to tell a better story. Some of us, though, kind of suck at it. And I know that seems kind of harsh, but if you aren't humbling yourself, then there's going to be a good chance that not many people are going to buy your book. So you want to make sure you stay tuned to today's video to find out more. This is Self-Publishing with Dale. And if you want to learn more about writing, publishing, and building your author brand, make sure that you hit the little subscribe button and turn the bell notifications on so that way you don't miss a single video. And look, folks, stick around to the end because actually I'm going to be hooking you up with some good next steps after you've written your book. And you'll see what I mean when we get to that point. But I'm going to be giving you today 10 ways on how to tell your story a little bit better than what you're doing right now. And I'm just going to say this right now. Here's the issue. Whether you're fiction or you're nonfiction, you as an author need to get the craft of writing down to a science. You will never be perfect at it. I can assure you that. But if you can kind of get some of this advice that I've curated from numerous resources and picked up and helped to kind of define my own writing style as well, then you're definitely on the path towards perfection. So again, attention, nonfiction authors, don't tune out. This is going to be for you as well because listen, folks, if you're a nonfiction author, here's a little bit of a phrase you're going to need to kind of learn. If you want to get people's attention, facts tell, stories sell. Remember that phrase. Facts tell, stories sell. Now, for you fiction authors out there, this is going to work really well for you. Okay, so I've got 10 ways to tell a story well. So let's start out with number 1. All right, lead with a hook. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an indie author's book and I start to read it and it bores me within the first 2 sentences. Get to the point. You got to really get it to where you're roping me in and getting me hooked. So for instance, the beginning of one of my favorite books, and this is actually a nonfiction book, it's by Mick Foley. It is called Have a Nice Day. And in that book, he opens it with where he pretty much loses his ear in a wrestling match. That got my attention immediately. Like, come again? You lost your freaking ear? Are you kidding me? And so you can see that it starts out right out the gate. Now, you don't need to be having it to where every single one of your stories, someone's going to be losing an ear, but you got to figure out a way that's going to compel them to stay tuned to this. Because if you're just leading and just moseying into your story, no one's going to want to turn to the next page. Number 2, define your characters. You got to know who's your protagonist and who's your antagonist. Sometimes they're going to be a character, sometimes they're not. So, I mean, if you look at, for instance, the old movie, it's called Twister. Twister, the antagonist, is clearly the tornado. The tornado that is, happening in the movie. And you got your protagonists, I think it might have been, Bill Paxton, and I think it might have been Helen Hunt. They were the protagonists. So they're the heroes we want to kind of cheer for. So we always want to make sure we define who's the bad guys, who's the good guys. All right? And it's not always going to be clear cut for you at first. And I recommend that before you write the very first word, try to figure out in your mind who's who. All right? Because otherwise, it's going to become a mess. You're going to start getting your characters to do things that they shouldn't be doing, and you haven't really defined them very well. Well, of course, they're going to be doing a bunch of random things. And what ends up happening is it takes the reader right out the story if you're not being very realistic. Because the point of reading is to suspend someone's disbelief. Get it to where they can get engrossed in the story so much that they forget about the world around them. Step number 3, all right? Every piece has to contribute to the plot, all right? Every piece. So this means none of this filler stuff. We don't need to have pleasant small talk between our 2 characters. Hey, how's it going? I'm great. How are you? Even worse yet, you start to just use stilted conversation that you think works in real life. Hey, how are you, Dale? I am great. How are you, Pam? Oh, I'm fantastic, Dale. I'm glad that you asked. Say, Pam, doesn't really work. And we want to make sure that it's contributing to the plot. What is it going to be that is adding to the story and it's going to keep people turning from one page to the next? So the other thing is like pointless things. Like, does this action make sense in the grand scheme of things? Does it make sense for me to add into the fact of the story that, oh, I went to the bathroom and I started brushing my teeth and then I flossed them and then I rinsed them. And my story is about a romance. And none of this has anything to do with the compelling storyline. So just remember, every piece contributes to the plot. Make sure that you're very deliberate in what you're saying and sharing within the context of your story. And that kind of leads me to the fact of no pointlessness. All right? Skip the pointlessness. I know this kind of seems like the same thing, but every now and then, you don't want to go so over the top with some stuff that it just takes a person right out the story. I mean, unless that's your gimmick, you're doing like a satire style book and that's, you're supposed to be going over the top, but you don't want to do it at the expense of the story. So make sure that you're being very selective about what you're putting into your story, and it's not just pointless, you know. So there was a car wreck outside in the background. Like, okay, what's that car wreck doing? I mean, why did I mention this car wrecking out in the background? Is it somebody that got into an accident that the protagonist knows? Is he going to go check it out? Because if this car wreck had nothing to do, then it's pointless. It's just putting a lot of just extra things in there that's just wasting people's time. Here we go. This one's a big one. Create tension or create conflict. You got to create tension and conflict in some capacity that gets people turning from one page to the next. And just when you think you've put your protagonist in the deepest quagmire possible, put them deeper. I want you to put them deeper. Think about the story of Rocky and how everything kind of starts out, and then the odds start to stack against Rocky as the movie goes on. And just when you thought it was going to get better, it just gets worse. And so I want you to kind of think about that. Get it to where you really get people on the edge of the seat. Now, I'm not telling you do it so much that it is at the expense of the plot. Again, kind of going back to every piece must contribute to the plot. But remember, we got to get that conflict going because that's the reason people are reading. They want to know, like, what's the juicy gossip on this? How am I going to keep, oh my gosh, I can't wait to find out. Is this person going to be able to get out of this mess? All right, characters must change. You got to get them through a journey. There's a reason why we're watching this. I think we can take a very good example here. Now, whether you enjoy his films or not remains to be seen, but I bet you how much. If you've seen 2, 3, 4, even more Adam Sandler films, you'll notice that it's very formulaic. And he goes through a journey on each one of those movies every single time. Like, for instance, we look at Billy Madison. He was a buffoon. He was a rich kid that wasn't very educated, had to go back through entire school in order to learn and get his diploma so he can keep his company. He went through this journey. He didn't just try to, like, say, for instance, cheat his way through. Oh, that could have been a different story arc. But he grew in his journey. And you'll see that in every Adam Sandler movie. Always starts out here, ends right here. We don't want to have this linear movement. We don't want to have it to where it's just straight across and it's just like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. No, we want to see growth in this person because as someone is reading this book, they want to feel like they're coming along for the ride. They want to feel like they've grown from it. And sometimes if they can get a little lesson in the process, that's another big advantage in reading your book. So here's another one. All right, this is one of my favorite ones and a big pet peeve, and I think I'm guilty of it a lot. And it is show, don't tell. All right, stop telling. All right, I'm a tall guy. Okay, I'm about 6'1". Used to be about 6'2", but instead of saying Dale's tall stature is 6'2" or something like that, what you could say is when Dale entered the room, he had to duck his head down underneath the vestibule in order to get through the doorway. You know, get it to where you're explaining height through the actions of this person. Or you're explaining, for instance, instead of saying, you know, I don't know, Amber had a pimply face. Bad example, but it could always be, you know, Amber sat pensively thinking as she scratched at her latest, breakout on her face. Something that's going to show instead of just telling people. This is tough. And you're going to find that when you go through the editing process, you're going to see a lot of telling. And when you can kind of remove the tell and show, you're going to draw more people into your story. So explain it through actions, folks. Remember this here. Explain through actions, not through boring stats. Remember that. Actions, not boring stats. All right, here we go. Write good dialogue. Yeah, write good dialogue. And when I mean write good dialogue, you heard I kind of said before, you don't want to have these stilted conversations. But to add to it, I see this quite a bit where some people are worried about redundancy in their wording. They're worried to saying said or asked. Said and asked are kind of the gold standard of exchangeable dialogue within your writing. Don't be afraid to use it. I see some people go shouted or cried out or things like that, and that's awesome. It's great that you've got this thesaurus on your side. Sometimes the simplest and easiest thing to say is he said, she said. That's it. You don't want to overthink this one here, folks. Alrighty. Are you stuck? Get stuck, do something crazy. I know I said no pointlessness, nothing that doesn't contribute to the plot, but every now and then if you find that you're kind of running into a writer's block, you've just hit like a wall and you go, oh man, do something crazy. So let's just say, for instance, we go into this. We've got our conflict and things start to escalate, and it seems like it's going down for this person, and then we're going to pop it back up. So we give it a little bit of hope, a little bit of a shine, a little happy spot, if you will. And then we're going to do something crazy. Just when we thought it was just getting really good, oh man, we still got some time left. We're going to do something crazy. Something that just seems way out the blue, but still adds to the plot and gets it compelling. We're going to drop it right on down, drop it on out, and then we can make this big old comeback at the very end. Alrighty, so I've got one more point of these 10 points on how to tell a story. Well, I do want to give a really quick plug. Hey, join me every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on dalelinks.com/live. Here on YouTube. We're here live every week. I always love the broadcast and speaking with you guys. Self-Publishing with Dale, also over on twitch.tv/self-publish every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hey, you can join me and subscribe for free with your Amazon Prime. If you go to dalelinks.com/Twitch Prime, you find out how to do that. This past week, I apologize, folks. This past Monday, I unfortunately had to forego the podcast recording. So if you came and you noticed the little banner, it said I wasn't there. I'm sorry. But we will be back on the saddle going into next Monday. All right, point number 10, folks. This one's a big one. Practice makes perfect. And you ready for this part? Editors make your practice better. All right? So I see a lot of people out there that are trying to grind it out and find their way as an author. And one of the best ways to find your voice is to continue to write and continue to publish. But in between that writing and publishing point, you need to be finding a good editor. You need to be finding some good peers to review your content, to go through and pick holes in those things. And you have to be receptive to the feedback and try to implement those things. So I can't tell you how many times I've gone into some nonfiction authors' books and I see the word that just littered throughout there. That. Oh, it's not even indie authors sometimes. That is sometimes not even necessary. It's a filler word, and you can pull it out in most occasions. And I've told this to people time and time again. And the funny thing is when they pull it out, they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. So this is a great example of getting external feedback. Don't just rely on Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid or your Microsoft Word spelling and grammar checker. This is where you're going to have to step out and actually get a good editor, because they're going to start to show you some of your weaknesses, and you can start to figure out, okay, gosh, I got to do a lot of passive sentence structure. Better fix this. Or, man, I keep saying the same word. He entered the room. He's feeling awful sad. He's doing this, and you just keep doing redundant sentence structure. An editor is going to be able to pick those things out for you and really help you refine that. Hey, I did mention to you that I wanted to share with you a a launch sequence you can use. And some of you actually have been sticking around here long enough here on this channel. You probably heard of it. It's the Bestseller Book Launch Checklist. You can actually get your hands on it. So you've already written your book, be it fiction or nonfiction. What do you do after that? What do you do before your book goes live online? What you're going to want to do is go through this Bestseller Book Launch Checklist. This thing right here has got so much stuff on it, it'll keep you for a while. You're going to go over to dalelinks.com/checklist. Again, that's dalelinks.com/checklist. There's a link right down in the description down below, and you can actually get yourself signed up. It actually will get you involved in email newsletter. You'll get the Bestseller Book Launch Checklist. It'll tell you all the steps, step by step. I send it out. You actually get to bite-sized pieces. It's almost like a mini course for you. In the meantime, I actually got this other video with a former guest of the channel, Tim Knox, where he talks about character development in fiction. This is a really good talk. And we talk a little bit about writing character profiles. Is it necessary? Is it a little bit over the top? Do you need it? It's actually a really good talk, and you don't want to miss it, so you're going to want to make sure you click that link and go right to it. I'll see you there.